Hey, you guys, welcome back to Theology Today, a podcast designed to explore all topics with a biblical foundation. Just in time, it's Friday, so let's get on it. Today, we're going to talk about divine providence, and I know this is a very touchy topic for a lot of people, so I hope that this sheds some light and we get to learn from it. So, for those of you guys that are new in this adventure, I'll invite you to subscribe to this content either through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, or YouTube. So, just like, share, subscribe. Set some comments on the YouTube channel. That'll be amazing. Thank you also for listening. And our first episode with Dr. Ben Blackwell is over 4,000 views, and I'm so excited, you guys. There's no other word, but this is just crazy. It's just been a blessing. Thank you for watching and listening. um so like I said earlier, today's episode is why divine providence. So if we go to the Bible to Romans 8 verse 28, says the following: and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Now, what is divine providence? If you do a 5-second Google search on what does the word means, is you're going to come up with this, that it says, in theology, divine providence, or simply providence, is God's intervention in the universe. Now, where can we see that? Well, might as well just point to the whole Bible, from Genesis to Apocalypse, because God is constantly, his presence is constantly there. He is constantly changing or enacting his will into nature and to us. Now, I can point you also to like my life experiences. I can maybe remind you when you saw God in control of a certain event in your own life. But today I want you to understand that God is in control of your life only if you let him be. And what does that mean, right? You see, God is a God of a covenant. Jesus said to us to take our cross and to follow him. So when I hear statements like just pray and it will happen, it infuriates me to the core, because God is not a fast food restaurant, okay? Where you just ask for something, move to the next window, right? And then you get your food. Like, God is not your personal lackey. It's not like, oh, I need $1 million because I need to have a better lifestyle. So God, please give it to me. Right? That's not how it works. Now, let me tell you something. God can work in your life. He can work in your favor. God can break the rules of nature in your favor. God can and will do his will. Do you see what I did there? He will do his will, not ours. So we need to know what is his will. You see, Paul tells us that we don't even know what to pray for, right? In Romans 8:26, he says, likewise the Spirit help us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. So then, if we don't know what to pray for, that means then when we do pray, we should ask for God's will to be done in heaven and in earth, right? So how can we see God's hands in our lives then? Well, once we're connected to God's will, then we can understand that his providence is at work in our lives. You see, Romans 8:28, the first verse that I read to you guys, start with, and we know that for those who love God, right? That little portion right there. Isn't this a requirement? Doesn't it require you to love God? He or she who obeys God and do his will loves God. He says, and we know it's not only talks about like common fact between them, right? We know, oh, you know, it's a common fact with them, right? But it's not only that, it's also an authoritative start. And we know this is a fact. This is when I say this, I call it with authority because it knows that this is what's gonna happen, right? And we know for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. So the question is this: Do you want to see God's providence? The answer to that, right, would be yes if you're a Christian, right? But the answer is that you have to love God, right? You do His will, you answer to His calling, and all things that He wants to happen so that His will be done will come to order. You see that? It is not magic, ladies and gentlemen, right? It's not a trick. It's not let me pray for diamonds or and it's just gonna arrive. It's I didn't study for this test, please God give me an A. It's not none of this. We're talking here about God's plan. If He said that something is going to happen, then it will happen, with or without you, with or without me, right? But if we connect ourselves in service of God and we do His will, then the acts of divine providence will be clearer to us because we already know what's going to happen, and then we can see how it happened, or we can go back in time and see, oh, all these things that I was just doing led me to this point where I'm serving God, right? And then you saw how the providence was working through all those things. Personally, right? When I decided to answer God's calling towards ministry, it was then when my life came into order. I had a place to live, a Christian school to go to, a degree, right, that will work for God's plans. It was God's providence. It was not me. I'm gonna leave you with this. It's a Bible verse in Philippians 2:13. We can read there the following: For it's God who works in you, both to will and to work for His good pleasure. Right? To will and to work. To will and to work for His good plans. His good pleasure. So remember this: divine providence is not about asking for you, but rather your integration into God's plan. And there, while performing God's plan, you will see that while you work for Him, that He will take care of you. You will see His hand. You will see that you are not going to be hungry, that you will have clothing, that things are going to come into order. Things are going to happen that you can't explain, but doors are going to open for you that didn't want to open prior. That is how divine providence works, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. For those of you who are in the just the listen versions of the podcast in Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple, the others. And for those of you on YouTube watching, thank you. And I want to let you guys know that we just recorded our next episode with Dr. Timothy Brookings, a professor of Christianity from Houston Baptist University. Also, he is one of the languages professor. He teaches undergrad and masters alike. He teaches a bunch of other classes, but I don't want to give up huge information about him because in the next episode we're going to cover all that. But please make sure that you are paying attention to it because it was a really good episode. Lasts about an hour. So for those of you you'll get to see the whole thing, and those of you who are in the just listening portions, You will have an increment of 10 minutes, around 10 minutes, give or take, on Tuesdays and Thursdays until you get all the full hour. So thank you very much for watching. God bless you. This is Luis Marrero from Houston, Texas, and I'll see you in the next episode.